welcome to our channel. Today I'm going to tell you an incredibly exciting story. Will make you hold your breath. But before we dive into this fascinating story, make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss new videos. Always keep up to date with the most intriguing story. Join our community, like and leave your comments. One day I was on my way to a friend's cottage. Regular working Friday. In the evening, anticipating the taste of barbecue and cold beer, I raced by car along the highway from the city towards the country house. The cottage was not far away, only 30 miles from the city. And I knew the road by heart. Could have gone there with my eyes closed. It's nothing complicated. Almost all the time in a straight line. Only at the end of the way you need to turn to the village of Lakeview. And there you are, just around the corner. It was raining with a thunderstorm that day, and the visibility of the road was poor, so I drove slower than usual. Getting into an accident was not part of my plans today at all. I got stuck in traffic halfway down the road. Where could it have originated on the highway? After 2 hours of turtle movement, I saw the cause of the traffic jam. Road repairs. As always, as I drive, there are always adventures, road repairs, accidents. Well, we'll have to take a detour. And how fortunate. Right in front of the barriers that the workers had set up, there was an exit to a country road and a sign indicating that there was a detour through the village in that direction. The sign was so old that the name of the village was no longer legible. Well, maybe not everything is so bad. Well, I'll stay for a while longer, going around the repair work and fly with all sails to my friends. As I drove off the road, I noticed that only I decided to go around. All the other cars immediately turned around and drove back to the city. Kind of weird. Maybe they know a shorter way? Well, anyway, I had already moved onto a dirt road and I was reluctant to turn around. Of course, there were no lanterns on this road, and the road itself was quite old, and it was clear that cars very rarely passed along it. But it was difficult to see it because the road was very much washed out by the rain. I would not get stuck here in this quagmire of earth and clay. It was difficult to drive, especially in my car, which was far from new. And so the roofs of houses appeared in the distance. It was after midnight, and the rain was only getting heavier, turning into fine hail. Super. That's all I needed. It was almost impossible to continue the journey in such weather, so I decided to call my friends, say that I would arrive only in the morning, and I would try to spend the night in this village, hoping that someone would shelter me. I took the phone in my hand. Of course, there is no signal. The 21st century is in the yard, and if you turn off the main road for a couple of miles outside the city, you get to the Middle Ages. Okay, I hope my friends won't worry too much and fall asleep, and in the morning I'll let them down. I drove up to the first houses. Apparently, this village consisted literally of one road, along which houses stood on the left and on the right. Speaking of houses, they obviously didn't look particularly residential. I didn't see what happened to the other houses, but the first two gave me a little shock. To say that they were old is not enough. They were dilapidated, rotten, overgrown with impenetrable bushes. There was no light in any of the windows. It didn't surprise me. After all, it's late and people are already asleep. Although, are there any people here at all? Suddenly, lightning flashed, and I caught a glimpse of a silhouette on the road. He was tall. I would even say lanky. His arms seemed longer than an ordinary person's. And this something was dressed in some kind of rags. At the moment of enlightenment on the street, after the lightning, it ran towards the house closest to me. All this happened in just a few moments. I thought maybe because of poor visibility and fatigue, I imagined that it was some kind of monster. This, of course, was a man who was fleeing from the hail and ran to his home. Explained to myself, great, so there are people in this godforsaken place, and I can arrange a place to stay with them. I really didn't want to get out of the car. The rain was so heavy that even if you were outside for 30 seconds, you would get soaked to the skin, but there's nowhere to go. Sleeping in the car is not an option at all. I drove as close as possible to the house where the man ran. He took a purse and money with him, in case the owners asked for a fee for the night. And, gathering his strength, jumped out of the car. I ran towards the front door of the house under the porch. I got wet. became instantly cold and chilly. Yes, the weather in early October is just something. What's the saying? The weather doesn't have bad weather? There is. Yes, there is. The porch I found myself under was leaking, but in any case it was better than standing in the pouring rain. I knocked on the door. The owners? Is anyone home? Silence. I'm knocking again. Nothing happens. I tried to open it. No way. What should I do? Running to another house means getting completely wet and very likely getting sick. No, I don't need that. Maybe we should go around the house and there will be another door? We need to scout it out. With this plan, I moved along the wall of the house around the corner, glancing briefly out the window. For a second, I thought I saw some movement there. Somehow, I made my way through the thicket of impenetrable bushes to the back of the house. The door was really there, opened onto the backyard, although I'm not sure if those standing crosses were the backyard. So, wait, crosses? Where did the crosses come from? The backyard of this house looked more like an old cemetery than a vegetable garden. Something's not right here. I didn't have time to think about what I saw because the door opened behind me with a wild creak. Without thinking twice, I ducked inside. The door closed. Draft, probably. The house smelled musty, damp, and like burning. Well, at least now the rain is not a hindrance to me. I picked up the phone and turned on the flashlight on it, briefly noticing that the phone had 15% charge left. I started to move the flashlight around the room. Table, chair, mug, plates. Yeah, I'm in the kitchen. Then I remembered that I had kind of burst into the house uninvited and I should at least let the owners know that I was here. Owners? Will you accept a guest for the night? If anything, I can offer you money for your help. In response, silence, and only the sound of drops on the roof destroyed it. So, well, if there's no one here, then maybe I can spend the night unnoticed. And if the owners come, I'll explain everything to them in a kind way. So, there is a plan. We need to find at least a bed. Can't sleep on the floor. I definitely won't find a bed in the kitchen, so I need to get inside the house. Floor creaked loudly under my footsteps. The atmosphere is so-so. The night, the old house with its own cemetery in the backyard, the creaking floor. All the horror movies combined came to mind. Chill ran down my spine. I walked through the kitchen and found myself in a small room. There was a huge clock on the wall. You know, the ones that strike every hour as many times as it is time. They looked very old, and the stilts on them were somehow smoked. Also in this room, I saw a table on which some rags were lying, stained with either earth or something else. The room was in terrible condition. Wallpaper was falling off the walls, the ceiling was covered in stains, and the whole room looked creepy, and there was smeared dry dirt on the floor. There was a spring bed next to the table. Her headboard was very rusty, which suggested that no one lived in this house at all. No one will sped. I'm on such an old bed. No one but me. The dream came quite unexpectedly. Of course, I didn't get enough sleep for the whole working week. Plus, I've been on the road for more than 5 hours. Yes, those 30 miles to the cottage turned out to be much longer. Without much ceremony, realizing that this house was most likely abandoned and the owners would not come, I sat down on the bed, completely unafraid that it would fall apart and I would collapse to the floor, breaking through the rotten boards and fall into the basement. I wonder if there is any cellar here? So, well, the bed didn't crumble, a good sign. I put a purse under my head instead of a pillow, closed my eyes and fell asleep unnoticed. Somehow the fear had completely disappeared. I woke up to a strange sound. It was as if someone was walking around the kitchen and the floor creaked disgustingly under footstep. Opening my eyes and trying to figure out what I was doing here at all, I sat down on the bed and shouted, "Is anyone here?" Footsteps stopped. There's obviously someone there. I got out of bed and went to the kitchen. There is no one. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. The floor was covered in fresh dirt. What is it? What's going around so dirty at night? And where did it go? The thoughts in my head began to get confused with fear. As I turned to leave the kitchen, I saw a tall shadow flash into the room. I'll run over there. Mud again. Led towards a small trapdoor on the floor. How did I not notice him right away when I entered this room? Well, climb in there or whatever. I haven't fought with any evil spirits yet. I sat down on the bed and started thinking about what to do next. I'm unlikely to be able to sleep anymore. I didn't want to run to the car either. I just dried off, and the rain didn't stop outside at all. I have to go look for adventures on my 5th point. I found my old Swiss Army knife in my purse, at least some kind of weapon. However, if it's something otherworldly, then he's unlikely to help me. Gathering my courage, I went to the hatch. Open it? No. What for? What if there's something interesting there? Yeah, for example, some kind of ghoul. That's interesting. Well, do you need to do something? Need. After finishing the argument with myself, I started to open the hatch. His pen was covered in this very dirt, and it smelled so much that I almost saw my lunch today. It smelled like dead meat. This is beyond any limits. Well, since I got dirty in this, then I need to finish the job to the end. The hatch is open. I shone my phone there. Wooden steps leading deep in the darkness, as see, and nothing else is visible. Wow, a descent into the unknown. Then I noticed that the phone had 5% charge left. So I quickly go down, look around, send the evil spirits to the next world and go to sleep. It sounds like a plan. I was just bending down to start going down, and suddenly something pushed me from behind, and I fell headlong down. Silence. Pain in the head. I'm lying on something hard and unpleasant. Feeling with my fingers, I realized that it was something porous and hard. A bone. It's a bone. Instantly jumping up and shining a flashlight all around me, I discovered that the entire basement floor was strewn with bones and human skulls. I was just speechless with fear. Where did I get to? Who pushed me? How do I get out of here? While my thoughts were sluggishly digesting after the blow in my head, something stirred in the corner. There was something sitting and eating. Judging by the slurping sounds, suddenly the sound stopped and it began to rise slowly. It was probably 2.5 meters high. Dry, long legs, arms were below the knees, and on the hands were crescent-shaped fingers or claws. It was impossible to make out. The head was extremely toothy. She looked like an elongated gnawed skull. There were no eyes, or I just didn't notice them. This monster rushed at me with a heart-rending scream. Dropping the phone, I somehow dodged it and fell. Get up. You have to get up, I muttered to myself. Instantly turning around, the monster rushed at me again. This time, I didn't have time to parry, and a razor-sharp claw slashed across my chest. Pain shot through my whole body, and apparently not only mine. The monster roared and fell next to me. A Swiss Army knife was sticking out of his chest. Run. I have to run away from here. I definitely don't have a second knife. I jumped up and started to climb the stairs like a bullet, picking up the phone from the floor. Then I heard that this monster got to its feet and was already running towards me. With all the strength I had left, I climbed very steep stairs, completely unaware that the ground with rotten, dead things was under my feet and hands. Suddenly, I was dragged down by my leg. It's so good that my shoes are not on laces but on zippers. Quickly unbuttoning it with one movement, the shoe remained with this creature and it fell down. I open the hatch, it's already getting light outside. With a quick movement, taking the purse, I slammed into the front door with all my might, into the one that was locked, hoping that I would knock it to hell. Either I don't weigh much or I no longer had the strength to disperse, but the door met me with a thud and I flew back. The bolt. There's a bolt on the door. I'm a blind fool. I got up quickly, ran to the door, removed the bolt, and then I heard a nasty breathing behind me. Without looking at what was behind me, I opened the door, stormed out of the house, and ran to the car. The rain had already stopped, and fog was spreading on the ground. Getting into the car, I immediately pulled off the handbrake, drove off. I looked in the rearview mirror, and there, only the old cemetery is visible. But there are no houses, and there are about 5 of these scary creatures standing on the street and looking after me. I finally got to the cottage. When my friends saw me in the morning, they were almost speechless. Dirty, with a bloody cut on his chest, without a shoe, all disheveled. I've told you everything. My friend looked at me in disbelief and said, "There is no village there. There is only an ancient cemetery there." But it appeared after. Although wait, there was a village there, but it burned down more than 100 years ago. Everyone who lived there died, and they buried all the inhabitants there. On the site of the burned village? Yeah, I guess we'll go home by another road.